All right, folks, thank you for your patience this afternoon. We have Dan and Jimmy that's going to talk to us about HVAC technician. Thank you so much to you both for taking time out of your schedules to speak with us.
Sure.
Go ahead. You're more than welcome to start speaking.
All right, so I've got a little list here that's kind of an itinerary of how to go through this. So I'll just kind of start there. My name's Dan Davidson. I'm the MEP coordinator for the school district here in Victoria, and that's mechanical, electrical, and plumbing is what MEP stands for. My background is air conditioning. That's definitely what got me into this position, is air conditioning. My start, how I got off into this, was kind of a funny deal. My brother, back in the junior high school days, actually had a friend whose family owned an air conditioning business. So in the summers and spring breaks and Christmas holidays and such, he would go to work for them. And then when he got of age, junior, senior, he worked half a day for them. And I followed suit, did the exact same thing. By the time I was 20 out of school, I was a crew leader. We were installing. There was a lot of new houses being built at that time. There was a boom going on. So Cimarron, Fleetwood, Coleman and Rolfe, Mayfair Edition, there was just lots of houses being built, and we were primarily the installers. Start out as a helper, and like I say, by the time I hit 20, I was a crew leader, and I had a couple of guys working for me, and we were doing the installs. Then we would start them up whenever it came time to start up the new houses. Also do change outs, go to existing houses with air conditioning, and if they're bad, you change those out, put in new ones. Did a whole lot of that to kind of get my feet wet. And when you weren't doing those things, they would put you with a air conditioning mechanic. Back then, they didn't call them techs and all these fancy names. They were air conditioning mechanics. We'd ride with them and kind of learn through them how to actually work on them and kind of diagnose. And that's kind of how I got my start. Did that, bounced out of the field 2 or 3 times back in that area because business was slow, but I always wound up coming back to it. I just had an interest in fixing stuff. It's always fun when you can come to something broke and leave knowing that you fixed it. And especially in the air conditioning world, you make people very, very happy whenever you've managed to do that. But somewhere in the early 90s, they decided that they were going to start doing state licensing instead of having the local courthouses, your local municipal courts regulate it. Back in the day, you'd get your experience, you'd go to your courthouse, you'd take a test. If you passed it, you got a master's license, but that only allowed you to work in that county. So the state got involved, TDLR got involved and decided to make it a state deal. So then you go take a test with the state. If you pass that, you get a state license, and now you can do it in any county in the state of Texas. So like I say, 10, 15 years of installing and bouncing around with guys and learning my way. And then I went and got my state license. Actually wound up working at a plant for about 8 years for Brown and Root doing air conditioning work. Then worked for the plant for about 3 years being a process operator, and did not like that. So came to VISD, back on my tools for about 5 years. And then when the coordinator retired, I applied for and got his position. And that's how I am here where I am. Let me look at this list here and see. I think I've got a lot of my little quick how I got there. Level of training was absolutely what I said. School of Hard Knocks, just got out in the field and did it. These days, they've got technical schools that obviously that's what y'all are looking into, and that's it's getting to be that's really a way you need to go if you're going to the field is wonderful. You need both. You need field experience, but with the things getting so technical and electronics and printed circuitry and smart computers and smartphones and smart air conditioners, you about have to go get some formal training. I would highly suggest that. It's asking me here what I enjoy about my job. Pure and simple what I said a while ago. I like going to something broke and being able to fix it. And if it's not fixable, I know I can, I've got the knowledge to change it out, put in a new one, and get it running again. As I see, there's a question here about the knowledge of math, science, reading. Obviously, you got to have a little bit of all of that. You got to learn how to read and comprehend what you're doing. You also got to learn how to read wiring diagrams and schematics. This field, I'll tell you one thing about it: you're everything. You're a carpenter, you're a plumber, you're an air conditioning guy. You got to be a little bit of everything to get it done. As far as the equipment that we're using, we use all of your basic hand tools. You know, screwdrivers, nut drivers, needle nose pliers, lineman's pliers, diagonals, crescent wrenches, channel locks, voltmeters, amp probes, vacuum pumps, refrigerant leak detectors, a torch. You use a torch a lot whenever you're sweating these things in and out. And I'm probably missing a few. Oh, gauges, by the way. You might want to use some gauges to check pressures. Protection equipment, that's kind of, you know, as any field, you're really you should use your safety glasses and gloves if possible. Sometimes it's just not feasible to do it, but you try to protect yourself as best as you can. COVID-19, how it's changed us here. Well, from a coordinator standpoint, which means office, it's changed some things here because obviously it shut down our schools, and I have 18 guys that work under me I have 4 electricians and 4 plumbers, and the rest are in the air conditioning group. That being said, I really only have 4 air conditioning techs. The others do other various jobs, filter changing, and kind of just a general utility for us. They're there to help. But with that being said, we wound up all going home. So it had us sitting there idle for a while. We had a feeding program going on here at the school district, so we still had people working off and on. Just turned it into an as-needed basis. People got called in when they needed. If it was an essential thing that needed to get repaired, we came in, we repaired it, and then we went back home and kept our distance like we were supposed to. I got a feeling that this little event is probably going to change the way a lot of people do business, including school districts, in the future for forever. But that's just my opinion, and we'll see on that. I don't have any props or tools. Let me see. I believe that's kind of the gist of what y'all asked of me, and I'm going to speak on behalf of Jimmy here just for a minute. Say hi, Jimmy.
Hello, how y'all doing?
He's actually been here since, God, how long have you been here?
About 30 years.
He's been with the district 30 years. His dad was actually the mechanical coordinator before I came to work here and took the place. So he kind of followed suit, same as me. I followed my brother. He followed his dad. And he's every bit as capable of doing this job here. He just got the good office job. He got the energy manager's job.
It has its own unique problems.
It certainly does. Now that I'm speaking about that, that is another thing with today's stuff, especially like here at the district. We have energy management programs, which, again, that's a whole different animal compared to what I grew up with primarily. Jimmy has the ability to look on his computer and see just about every classroom in the district. And for the better part, he can control the temperatures and the limits. He can do a lot of troubleshooting for us before he ever even calls us. He can get on the computer and look at it and see what it's doing and what it's not doing. See if it's a lot of times they say it's not cooling. He looks on there, someone in the classroom turned the thermostat to 80 degrees. He can find that and tell us that. He can have them correct it without even sending us. So there's a lot of complicated parts that are becoming what air conditioning is today. It's more to it than just being out in the field. But I don't know. That's it. Like I said, if there's any questions that Jimmy, he can answer from his behalf.
Dan, we got some questions here. Aside from what you just explained with the mechanical parts, what would be the hardest part of each of your days or each of your jobs?
It is obviously you're out in the heat when it's hot, and you're out in the cold when it's cold. I mean, it's very much outdoors, which is one of the reasons I loved it. I've never been one to be inside, but obviously in extreme colds, you're going to be working on heaters and heat pumps, which require you outside. And when it's extremely hot, you're going to be working outside in the sun, or you're going to be up in attics. A lot of air conditioners are up in the attics, and you're going to crawl around in a 130-degree attic to try to figure out what's going wrong with it and make repairs. That's by far the worst.
And as far as his coordinating job and mine, it is to deal with, you've got to realize we're trying to keep 2,000 employees happy and about 14,000 students happy at all times.
And you can imagine the difficulties in doing that.
Okay, what about any soft skills that you recommend the students having?
I would assume that means more like computer skills and stuff like this.
Or even the people skills, how to be patient and understanding, empathetic when you really may not have the time or patience for that.
Go ahead.
That is a big part of it. You really have to listen to the people and let them know they are important. You're doing everything you can to make, get them up and going again and make them feel that you are trying, because it is just a big part to talk to them and communicate with them.
In Jimmy's world, he has limitations. The school district has policies that set temperatures. Jimmy doesn't get to just, if you say I'm hot, he doesn't get to cool you down. He has to follow guidelines. Making people understand that is a very complicated thing when they're feeling uncomfortable. And I'll say this, you've been in this position now, what, 5 years? Three. And he was on his tools at Memorial High School all of his career until 3 years ago. Like I said, he's plenty capable of doing my job, but we were begging to get him to replace the old energy manager because of his people skills. He's got excellent people skills. He can tell you exactly what you don't want to hear and leave you with a smile. And that's you do have to do that. From my world, I want to say, like back when I was working out for air conditioning companies, it's not quite that difficult. I've got and I'm not trying to talk down about the electrical world, but I've got an electrician friend who explained to me, he said, someone can call us up and ask us how much it costs to install a ceiling fan. And you tell them $85 an hour, and it's probably going to take 2 hours. And he said, they holler and scream and pitch a fit. He said, you air conditioning guys get called. They don't even ask how much. You go change out a $20 part. You charge them $150, and they leave you with they're happy you were there. They thank you're God. They give you a tip. so it's not so hard. When people are at home, it's not near as hard to have to worry about that people problem like you do in Jimmy's world. Jimmy's world is much more complicated when it comes to that.
Does anyone else have any other questions they'd like to ask at this time? You did talk about safety and policies and procedures. How often do y'all go through those policies and procedures within the ISD?
Most of the guys here know what they're doing. They know what they need. They know what they need to protect themselves better than I do. So they basically, if they need to purchase something that's going to be better for them and easier for them, we discuss it, and they always get absolutely go get it. That's one of the pieces of equipment that we did not discuss a while ago, and that's a reclaimer. In these days, you're not supposed to let refrigerant leave the system and get out into the atmosphere. It's, killing the ozone and all that kind of stuff. So they do make machines where you can remove the refrigerant from a unit so that you can work on it in the event that you need to. It's very seldom that you need it. It's basically if the internal compressor actually burned up and you can no longer use that refrigerant, you'll remove it, and we take it and we get charged. They send it off. They either recycle it or dispose of it. But most of the time, you can either save the refrigerant other ways, or if you walk up to a unit and it's had a leak, it's already leaked out. There's not much you can do. But that is another machine that's kind of you were talking about safety policies, procedures. That is part of it, is that anytime when necessary, we do what we need to do to save and recycle refrigerant and try to protect the environment as best as we can. And, I might add on this also. I know you're kind of looking for questions there. It just so happens that my brother is still doing this to this day, and I'm still doing this to this day. He went on and had a 25-year career at a plant. I tried the plant, didn't like it, came back to air conditioning. He's got a 26-year-old son. I've got a 25-year-old son. They work with us every day. They're in the same business, following suit. They absolutely love it. It's hard work. You're not going to get anywhere sitting at home on the computer or playing Xbox. I mean, it's a physical job, and it requires work, but it's fun. And like I said, they absolutely love it. Both of them have college behind them, and both of them are thinking that this is what they're going to do, at least for a while, because they've seen the financial potential of it.
Does VISD have any apprenticeship opportunities for those seeking HVAC technicians?
We do. The hard problem with an apprentice thing, and again, that would almost require some sort of schooling or something. We have helpers, and then we have technicians, mechanics. So whenever, like I said, I've got 4 mechanics positions, and whenever a mechanics position comes available, I can't really afford, the district doesn't have the luxury to try to bring someone and let them learn. We need someone who can get in the truck and go start fixing air conditioners. We do have a couple of apprentice helper positions, really, and basically those who shine, those that we know we can see that they've got it and that they've got an interest. We will certainly work with them. Unfortunately, they don't get to promote up until someone leaves from one of the 4 mechanics positions, but we have brought 2 different ones up from, in the past 5-6 years, I guess, we have brought 2 people up from helper status to mechanic status.
Okay, does anyone else have any other questions that they want to ask at this time? All right, gentlemen, we do not have any other questions. I appreciate you taking time out of your schedules. We thank you for everything you do for our students and our staff there at VISD. Keeping them cool during the hot summer months and pretty much throughout the year here in South Texas. Once again, thank you. You all stay safe, stay healthy, and we look forward to talking to you again.
Well, thank you very much. I hope we were of some help.
Yes, sir, you were. Thank you.
All right. Thank y'all.